choose a comfortable position. You don't need to be looking at the camera if you don't want to. You can let yourself find another place in the room and a chair that's comfortable for you. Um, and just begin to let the body and the mind settle in what we would call an upright position. Although if there's a lot of body pain and lying down is more appropriate, that's okay too. It's just a little easier to fall asleep. So you try not to do that. And I'm going to start by ringing this bell. And we use that bell as a call to the Dharma, a call for us to come back to our heart and mind gathering itself together in one place, making an attempt to train the mind, to tame the mind. Because most of the time we're busy running around being generally controlled by our busy minds. And we don't often see that once we settle, we can see a little more clearly often into ways that we might be avoiding noticing how we suffer in our lives, how we get disenchanted, how we are disappointed, and have so much difficulty. And we cover that up with a lot of busyness. So just taking this time to welcome ourselves onto this cushion or chair, wherever you might be sitting. And in our group, we like to welcome people of all ages and ethnicity, cultural heritage and religious background, socioeconomic group, ability, sexual orientation, and gender identity. We study together and we practice for the benefit of all beings and for this living earth, recognizing the suffering that's caused by biases and prejudices, systems of power. And we aspire to do no harm and to dismantle barriers that cause separation and suffering, recognizing that our liberation is interconnected with the liberation of all. And I always like to take a few moments to be appreciative and to recognize the indigenous peoples of the region whose ancestral lands we are seated on. I don't know if you know the indigenous peoples in your area, Wendy, but most of us here in the Portland area, which is maybe 3 or 4 of us, is the Clackamas and the Cathlamet, the Molalla, the Multnomah, the Chinook peoples, the Tualatin, the Kalapuya, and they make up the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and also the Cowlitz and the Siletz, and many other native communities that made their homes along the Columbia River for 11,000 years. Whenever I say that number, I am in awe that people have been on these lands for 11,000 years before us. And those of you that are in other states, maybe you know the indigenous peoples whose lands inhabited where you are. And just recognizing these communities from the past and the present and the future, and being grateful for their contributions and their vibrant presence that is still around. And I like to just ask myself how I'm benefiting by living on this land that's traditional territory of indigenous peoples. So to all of those who have come before, the original makers and artists and healers, we humbly stand with them in support of their livelihood and their crafts and their sacred histories and stories. And as we are paying homage to ancestors, being appreciative of the Asian immigrants in the 19th century that came to the United States, the immigrants from China, from Sri Lanka, from Japan and Korea, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and those in our Theravadan lineage, this lineage of Buddhism that came from Burma. And so we have all these identities that have participated in encouraging us to be right here in this moment, including paying homage to the Buddha who discovered freedom from suffering. He was in a period of time where there were practices like mindfulness practice and metta, loving kindness practice, but he really saw that by sticking with mindfulness, complete freedom can be found. And so we try to carry on in that tradition, realizing that even in this lifetime, freedom is possible. And there's also appreciation for the Dhamma, the teachings that the Buddha was willing to share. It's not a very complicated practice. It's a simple practice, but it's hard to do because we start by developing concentration on the breath, training the mind to come back to a single object. And so we can just start by noticing what's happening in the breath. And we do it in the company of others. We do it on our own, and we do it in the company of others in Sangha, the Pali word for community. And within that community are the 5 precepts that are withheld to help with ethical behavior of non-stealing and non-lying and not using intoxicants and abstaining from sexual misconduct. And we practice within the guidelines of the precepts so that there's a container of safety. We can trust ourselves to do no harm. We can trust each other just in this small group or in bigger groups over generations and generations that have passed down the teachings of the Buddha from monks and nuns and lay people from 2,600 years ago. And so this precious opportunity to practice, to be able to sit, be with our breath, notice the simple, asking ourselves simply to notice where we feel the breath. Where do we notice it the most? Some people notice it the most at the nostrils. You can feel coolness there and warmth there. And other times you can feel the breath a little deeper into the body as you feel the rising of pressure against the diaphragm and the letting go of that pressure against the diaphragm. And at either of those places, the nostrils or the belly, we can notice whether there's coolness, whether there's tingling, whether there's warmth. We can notice the feeling tone. And so we have our attention at the breath. We have our intention to be with the body and mind in this place and time, right now. We can feel the weight of our buttocks on our chair, or we can feel the pressure of the floor against our feet. We can also use a touch point for that attention. We can notice pressure at the buttocks, pressure at the feet. We can let our attention return to that one place, breathing in and breathing out. And as the mind wanders, which it does, we can just gently ask it to come back. The same way if you were trying to guide a child, you would just, not with any force or any blame, just kindly bring the child back to the issue at hand, or our heart and mind back to the present moment. No hurry, nowhere to go. It's not a race, there isn't a finish line. But we do want to be as present as we can be. Which might mean if our eyes are gently closed and we can pay attention to maybe a breath or two, and then the next thing you know, there's lots on the mind carrying us away, or pain in the body somewhere grabbing our attention. And we can notice that with mindfulness, being present in this very moment. Awareness is there. And as the mind attends to this single object of the breath or the touch point, awareness arises and is with that present moment of noticing what's happening with the breath or the touch point. We might notice the beginning or the middle or the end of the breath as it rises and passes through the body. We might notice when it changes from an inhale to an exhale. We may be aware of that space in between the inhale and the exhale, as one begins and the other ends, and that one begins and ends. There's really a lot to pay attention to if we have just enough energy to be interested in what's really happening, the sensations around what's happening. Warmth, coolness, pleasure, disappointment, can't really tell. And we try to hold ourselves through all of this in kindness. We have this safety container of the precepts. We have this container of the breath within our body. And there's a safety there to be kind and gentle with ourselves as we just investigate without making it a long thinking process. We just want to be open, spacious, and present, using the breath to come back to when we find ourselves lost in thought or investigating something that might be a pain in the body somewhere. We can wake up in that moment, in that place, and begin right from there to just notice again, what is the attitude of the mind? What do we notice about our breath? Sometimes as we begin to settle into our noble position, various hindrances can arise. We might notice a restless mind flitting from here to there. And when that happens, we can just gently bring ourselves back to that attending to the single object to help build concentration. Or the hindrance of sleepiness, dullness, especially because we tend to keep ourselves so busy that when we quiet down, it's easy to just fall right into not knowing what's going on. And when that happens, we can sometimes just notice the pleasant sensation that arises at the beginning of that sleepiness. Before we really fall toward that sleepiness, we can notice the feeling tone of it isn't pleasant, or as we're thinking about it, are we judging ourselves that maybe we shouldn't be doing that, and then we have aversion is there. And so anything that comes into the mind is good fodder for the practice. And maybe it only keeps us occupied for a few more moments before we nod into sleepiness. And if that's the case, whenever we arise from it, we just begin again, noticing right then, is it pleasant or unpleasant? Maybe we don't have an opinion about it. And so we can notice when pleasant things arrive, when unpleasant things arise, whether we're grasping at something or pushing something away. If we've been practicing for a while, sometimes we have doubt in the practice. Oh, I'm not sure this is working anymore. What's it supposed to do anyway? That's okay. We just let these hindrances arise. We notice them. We might be able to see them pass away on their own. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. I'm aware that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. I can feel the warmth or the release of pressure. Being present with exactly what's happening. It doesn't sound very interesting, but it is amazing how much interest we can find. Having awareness be present and having wisdom be present to let go of what isn't serving us and to hold ourselves gently and kindly and investigate with ease. This is what's happening right now. Things are coming together and they're falling apart over and over again. And we see this directly with just our breath. It arises due to conditions. When conditions are just right, it starts to dissolve. And things change. The breath is always changing. We can't hang on to it and make it last longer or hurry it up unless we forcefully push it out. But at some point, the breath is going to continue to do its breathing on its own without our being able to control it. And so we can really begin to see that it's impermanent. It arises and passes on its own. And if we try to hang on to it, we will find ourselves suffering because we aren't getting something the way we want it to be. And these are the three characteristics of existence: anicca, anatta, dukkha. Constant change, nothing to grasp onto, not me, not mine, not about me. And the suffering that we notice when we try to grasp or cling from craving something to be different. And as we notice what's happening in the heart and in the mind right now, what's arising and passing away, as we remember to hold ourselves gently, we can let this attention to concentration on the breath or the touch point to open a little more to the other senses so that we have this full breathing body. We can always go back to the breath if we find ourselves scattered and unable to concentrate. We can go back to the breath. Even if we just only go in 1 or 2 breaths, we can count the breaths sometimes, counting 1 on the inhale and 2 on the exhale. We can also broaden our awareness to whatever comes into any of the sense doors. So we have this breathing body. We feel the breath more throughout the body. And we have this open, spacious awareness, just holding the space. And at some point, something will come to one of the senses of hearing or seeing or tasting or touching or smelling or the thought door. And we have mindfulness there and awareness there to be with it wherever it is for the duration of its rising and falling. This is still single-pointed awareness, but it's from changing objects. Instead of just the single object of the breath, it's changing objects at whatever sense door is in our awareness. And we can let ourselves be held here by kindness, by our hearts, to just gently be present for whatever is rising and passing at any of those sense doors. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Holding myself in kindness. Being at ease as best I can with whatever's happening. May I have ease with what's happening now. May I see clearly that it arises and passes away. But we hold ourselves in kindness, in gentleness. Wanting to cause no harm. And as we notice our breath breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. We hold ourselves in kindness in this cauldron of the body of our breathing. And we hold others in this space as well. We bring into our heart and mind a close friend to share this space of being at ease, holding them in being at ease, imagining them happy and healthy. Seeing our friend happy and healthy, wishing them to be at ease, wishing them to have kindness for themselves, compassion for themselves when things are difficult. May you be free from anxiety, free from danger, free from ill will, and may you have happiness and the causes of happiness. This practice builds concentration just like the insight practice does, as we hold another being in our heart and let the focus be on happiness and compassion. The hindrances are less likely to intrude as we repeat the phrase or use a phrase that works for you. Or maybe you don't even use phrases, it's just a feeling tone as we hold another person in our heart space, a teacher, a benefactor. Maybe it's your first Dharma teacher. Maybe it's your favorite animal. A child. A being from whom you've derived great benefit. Seeing this being happy and healthy and having ease in their lives. Wishing them to be free from harm, safe and protected. letting this kindness and compassion that is including ourselves and our friend and our benefactor also expand to including a neutral person. Is it someone you saw today? Someone you heard about in the news? A group of people? Envisioning this being or beings to be happy and healthy, having goodwill, knowing just as I wish to be happy, you also wish to be happy. Whether it's a single person or a group of people, wishing them to be at ease. Developing this strength of kindness and compassion in our hearts for other beings unknown to us. Seeing this neutral person healthy and strong in our mind's eye, wishing them to be free from suffering. When they have challenges in their life, may they have compassion with themselves. May you be free from harm, safe and protected. Have ease in your life. And then as we open our hearts to this kindness and goodwill, may we also include a difficult person or a situation that is challenging for us. Just as I wish to be happy, I know that you also wish to be happy. And we have the support of the neutral person, the benefactor, the friend, holding ourselves in this cauldron of our heart connection with all these others. May we allow some of this kindness to touch this difficulty, touch this difficult person. We all wish to be happy. May you be free from harm. May you have ease in your life. May you be well. May you have compassion for yourself when things are difficult. May you take care of yourself happily. And as we expand this heart energy of kindness and compassion, let it reach to others who are in suffering, seen and unseen beings, and those beings that are in joy. Known and unknown, seen and unseen, those enlightened and those unenlightened, those that swim and crawl and have 1,000 legs, and those that have lots of fins and tails that swim, and those that have no color, that are buried below the ocean so far that they just shine. And all those beings above the oceans that fly, that are known and unknown, thousands and thousands of animals. May all beings everywhere, seen and unseen, known and unknown, have ease, be free from harm, be safe and protected. May they know true happiness. Anicca vata sankara upadavaya domino upakitava meruchanti te sam vipassamo sukho. All conditioned things are subject to change. They arise and pass away. They're impermanent. And when we see this clearly with mindfulness, it's the greatest happiness, which is peace. And may we hold that peace in our hearts and know that the goodness of this practice is of benefit to all sentient beings, to ourselves, to each other in our group. May we have this kindness and open-heartedness, and may we know how precious this human birth is, that we have an opportunity to practice together. And may we really realize that the goodness of our practice is of benefit to all beings. Thank you so much for your practice and for the joy that it brings to each of us for doing the practice, and for the joy that it brings to each other to have this companionship on the path. So,